The year was 1089, having just taken over from his late father Ernst II. Duke Leopold II was immediately presented by large challenges to his reign, in the form of the Countess of Graz, Beatrix. For the allegiances that were had with the elder Ernst II did not carry over to the reign of Leopold II. She is sure to continue to be a thorn in the side of Austria for many years to come. Later that year, Duke Leopold II learned that the King of Poland was somehow still alive. Having lived as a leper for many years, the royalty of Austria had assumed that he would have died many years ago, delaying their plans for the capture of Poland significantly. Mid-year of 1090, the Holy Roman Emperor passed away, having been succeeded by an Hungarian royalty. A genius, he's sure to be a strong emperor, and not one to be trifled with. A year later, the Cornish wife of Leopold II developed cancer, a truly tragic event, but nothing was to be done. 1092 was a stroke of luck for the Austrian royalty, as it seems like the King of Poland has finally passed on, having died from complications to leprosy. He's succeeded by his daughter and only heir, Diana, conveniently married to Egbert of Austria. It was now up to Egbert to have at least one child, only time will tell. Christmas of 1092, Egbert of Poland and Austria passes away, having had not a single child with the Queen of Poland, thereby ensuring that the House of Piast will go on ruling Poland for the near future. Truly a dark day for the von Babenberg dynasty. 8 years later saw the birth of another royal child. Elizabeth, the homely daughter of the Duke, was born and immediately thrown into a political marriage with Angria. In 1101, Austria set its eyes on Croatia. With many young and unmarried children, the political and royal landscape of Croatia looked unstable for the near future, and Austria was set to benefit. Unfortunately, Hungary was quicker. Hungary managed to outmaneuver Austria on the marriage game, a slight that Austria was not likely to forget. Later in 1106, the nightmare scenario happened. The wife of Duke Leopold II had another son. As was tradition for the time, the second son was served with his birth papers in one hand and disinheritment papers in the other. September of the next year, the Black Plague hit Hungary hard. 2 generations of royals died within months of each other, leaving the throne of Hungary unstable and chaotic for the near future. But there was one family who was set to benefit greatly from the chaos ensuing in Hungary. Through a chance marriage between Elizabeth the Homely and Geza of Hungary, the Kingdom of Hungary now looked to fall straight into the von Babenberg's lap without having to lift a finger. It was unfortunate that the young prince seemed to be a flagellant and in ill health. It was uncertain amongst the time whether he would even make it to adulthood, but Austria would do everything in its power to make sure that the young man makes it. But there was one more obstacle in the way of him and the Hungarian throne. Queen Mabel of Hungary would have to die. In 1110, the disaster scenario happened. At this point, it was circulating amongst the royalty of Europe that the von Babenberg dynasty was simply cursed. Due to a civil uprising in Hungary, the titles split, with the main title of Hungary now under a new ruler, and the previous administration being relegated to the Kingdom of Wallachia. Once again, the title of Hungary had slipped out of the Austrians' hands. 1111 turned out to be a significant year for the world as a whole. The Pope of the Catholic faith called for a crusade on Jerusalem, and all good Catholic nations were required to provide either gold or men to the war effort. Austria pledged immediately to support the war effort with men, as they had no gold. Mustering in the grand city of Vienna, they marched south and embarked somewhere near Venice to set out to the Holy Land. Arriving a year later near the coast of Haifa, the Austrians waited patiently for the other Crusaders to show up. A significant amount of time later, the Austrians became nervous that they were in fact the only nation that would actually show up to this crusade, despite the fact that most of Europe was indeed Catholic. Months later, the other Catholic nations showed up, and the Austrians made landfall in Gaza. A humiliating defeat ensued for the Crusaders. Austria personally lost 2,436 men in this first battle. Feeling dejected by the tardiness and cowardness of their fellow Crusaders, Austria decided to pack it in and go home, feeling that their debt to the Catholic Pope was sufficiently repaid. As predicted, the first crusade against Jerusalem failed miserably. In 1117, Duke Leopold finally decided that it was time to put his martial education to good use, and Austria declared war on the county of Salzburg. Marching across the border in October, the ensuing battle was short but bloody, as the Austrians had caught the Salzburg army in the mountains. The siege of Salzburg was equally short, and the war was over. In autumn of 1119, Duke Leopold II of Austria passed away, The ripe old age of 69, his final request was not to put his age as the premier element on his casque. He is succeeded by his son, Duke Ernst II, aged 35, a noble crusader from the recent war in Jerusalem. So torn was the new Duke Ernst by the passing of his father, his first son would be named Leopold, after his grandfather, Duke Leopold II, as is naming tradition. In the same year, Duke Ernst II would be remembered for negotiating a truce with France, leading eventually into a marriage alliance, providing the Duchy of Austria with a powerful ally in the form of the Kingdom of France. In May of 1119, Duchess Beatrix once again showed herself to be a problem, but it was a problem that Duke Ernst II would not have to deal with for very long. Months later, in July, Duke Ernst II of Austria passed away, at a mere 35, from injuries he sustained while defending the faith in the Holy Land. At a mere 5 months on the throne, he's succeeded by his eldest son, Duke Leopold III, a mere 1-year-old. With enemies around every corner, dark days were ahead for the Duchy of Austria. The king is dead. Long live the king.